So this is an idea I've had for a while now, ever since my first Hercules cartoon review. Taking a look at all the Disney movies that got a TV series, and possibly some more. And there are a lot, which is why I might not hit every single one, but I'll do as many as I can. Usually the biggest problem I see with movies made into TV shows today is, mostly, they're made in between the making of the sequel or other upcoming projects. So they're never allowed to do anything that would ruin the continuity or give away / make information or arcs in the story or characters. So if they can't do any of that, what are they actually doing in the show then? Well, mildly interesting hijinks and problems that don't hold much weight because, we got that movie coming out, and if we were going to do anything interesting or important, we'd do it in the actual movie because otherwise people would get confused. Obviously. These reasons and rules lead to these shows becoming stilted, trivial, and pretty boring. For the most part, I'm talking about animated movie TV series. I know they can pretty much make a cartoon out of anything, and let's face it, they kinda do. I guess the point I really want to make is, wait until your shit is done, and you have a story or a reason to make a cartoon that furthers some aspect or story piece that wasn't touched upon or wasn't able to get more attention in the original medium. And then give it purpose, besides banking on kids watching characters they saw on the big screen run around aimlessly for 22 minutes. But I suppose for starters, I'll be going back even further into an era where most of the stuff I just mentioned probably doesn't even matter. Since most of the sequels or follow-ups were not made in high quality. But let's get into the first installment of Movies Who Got a Series Review! Okay, with all that said, I've decided to start this review off on a high note, with what I think is a very underrated cartoon based on a popular movie franchise,
Buzz Lightyear of Starcommand!
I'm still waiting on that DVD release for this one. Buzz Lightyear of Starcommand may not be the equivalent of Gravity Falls or on par with, say, Steven Universe, but it definitely surpasses the categories of just good enough and average by far. And I credit that to the fact that this show, though inspired from Toy Story, is based on something that was only a small, undeveloped plot point, but still had potential. Buzz Lightyear of Starcommand was based on the Buzz Lightyear TV show, that the Buzz Lightyear toy was based on in the original film.
To infinity and beyond!
Which I think is a really fantastic idea. They didn't have to worry about continuity or restraints or character image. Because of this, they were able to create a slew of new characters, new ideas, new locations, new arcs, and even improve upon some original material. The ones that are recognizable, like Buzz and Zurg, are different representations of the characters in the movies. And frankly, they're just allowed to be their own separate thing. Buzz, who was voiced by Patrick Warburton after the Starcommand movie, instead of Tim Allen, I actually kind of like his new voice better, just at least for the series.
Good morning, USA! I got a feeling that it's gonna be a wonderful day. The sun in the sky has a smile on his face, and he's shining a salute to the American race. Oh boy, it's swell to say, good morning, USA!
Good morning, USA!
And then there's the evil emperor himself, Zurg, played by Wade Knight, who you might recognize from the popular show Seinfeld. Making a lot of sense since the Zurg in the series is pretty hilarious.
Yes, I wanted him to have the box.
In case you didn't notice, that box does some amazing stuff. Maybe I could use a box like that.
Don't matter. It's a box of doom. It's not for you.
A lot of the characters in the show hold these realistic and sometimes complex elements to their personalities. We also have Ranger Miranova, who is, what else, a princess, who's tough but reasonable, able to take charge, and is even a little awkward at times. Oh, and whose race can phase through solid matter. That's kind of important. Also, there's XR, a robot who went through a rough field testing accident, and I swear they just never fixed right, and ended up an egotistical, selfish robot who is actually pretty entertaining. And of course, Booster, the extra-large fanboy of Buzz Lightyear. There's also some good background characters throughout the series. There's Rocket Crocket, Commander Nebula, and Ty Parsec. On the villain side, oh man, I think they did just as good a job making interesting bad guys too. Warp Dark Matter, Zurg's #1 agent with a personal history with Buzz Lightyear. XL, a failed and more violent version of XR, an energy vampire named Nose4A2, the Wirewolf, and many more. The plots are usually pretty interesting and creative, but can sometimes be a bit predictable. But even so, I think it's these characters, as well as how well they can play off each other, and make even the most standard of plots so much more entertaining and interesting to watch. Now, for these kind of reviews, I'm going to pick out 3 episodes I think best represent or show off certain aspects of the show. Of course, my first thought was the Buzz Lightyear of Starcommand movie, The Adventure Begins, but that's technically not an episode, and I think I'd rather leave that for a separate video. So instead, these are my top 3 episode picks. This may be the first on the list, but it was the hardest to narrow down. Maybe because I originally wanted to find a Zurg episode, but although the majority of episodes involve Zurg in some way, there's not really any Zurg-heavy episodes that puts him in the spotlight. I really think he's a strong enough character and could carry an episode or 2 of the show, but instead I've chosen a different kind of bad parenting, muhahaha! In this episode, Zurg steals the DNA of Team Lightyear and plans to make evil clone versions of all of them. But things don't go quite as expected.
Wait! What are you doing? That's not enough distilled evil! You've got them set for 2! That's Bambi setting!
Apparently you can literally measure the evil in people now. There is an official number system for this.
A daring move, since of course you yourself contain only a whopping 13.
Oh, 13 you say, well, make them 12s.
2 does seem pretty low. I mean, I'm at least of 6.7. But these clothes turn out to be different than expected, and honestly, that's why I think this episode is so much fun.
I am Blister. Fira.
And I am Zub! Zub? You took the good guy's name and reversed it. That is so lame!
What makes a lot of these episodes better than average is all the little details and gestures that go into the show. Not only how everyone interacts and how much fun you can have with all these ideas and characters, and in this episode is watching these 3 clone kids being childish thug as brats throughout the episode.
I want a robot!
We want a robot! We want a robot!
Is it evil yet?
Which, I'll be honest, that sounds really annoying. In theory, but here it totally works. Yet I'm not 100% sure why that is, and maybe it's because they're evil clone children. How else would you expect them to act? Maybe it's because they do a good job at annoying the characters more than the audience, but all of these seem like possibilities. But the clone team decides they're not complete without a robot like the original Team Lightyear.
Hey! How come there are 4 of them and only 3 of us?
Since XR is a robot, he doesn't have any DNA to copy, so they decided to steal him and try to make him bad. It's also fun to see the clones interacting with their older selves. So the ominous Z jumpsuits. They're not raising any flags for you? Not doing anything, I guess?
Hey, by the way, that's quite an outfit you got there.
They capture XR and beat up Team Lightyear. Understandably, they don't take to fighting kids well, and even have a hard time believing that these are evil clones.
Those were no ordinary children. They were dirt-weighing shapeshifters.
They figure out the clones went to a theme park, and they end up making their very own evil XR. And of course, mess around with Team Lightyear some more. But they soon decide to use their own known weaknesses to stop the troublesome clones. Except for XR, who was not a clone and was only built to look like him.
Okay, I know what you're doing. Preying on every clone's weakness. Well, too bad. I may look like XR, but I'm no clone.
And doesn't actually share any of his mental weaknesses. Now, physical, that's a different story. Which I think is a perfect example of all the great little extra touches and thoughts that go into these episodes. And we end on the perfect to be continued episode. Too bad they never did follow up. All in all, I think the show keeps a pretty good level of continuity, and there are new and continued stories throughout the series, but unfortunately this isn't one. I don't know what it is about evil bratty children I like, but there's just so much fun to be had with it, and this episode definitely takes advantage. Number 2, Episode 9, Tag Team. Now, this one is a personal favorite of mine, further diving into the past relationship of Buzz Lightyear and Warp Dark Matter. Not only that, but they of course have to work together. Oh, and of course, I love the facial expressions on Warp. Every episode he's in just gets some great emotions and reactions. The episode begins with the two sporting their rivalry against each other, before they both end up mysteriously blacking out. It turns out to be caused by an implant both Warp and Buzz share. We get to see the two very different lifestyles that Buzz and Warp have led over the years. Buzz's being much more humble and simple, while Warp has worked his way into the lap of luxury and riches through much different means.
Crime pays, and it pays big. That's how I can live in the lap of luxury on my own moon.
You own that whole moon?
Oh, and a summer asteroid in the Hamptons ring.
The two decide to work together to investigate the source of the implants.
Hey, Lightyear, you don't still say
To infinity and beyond!
And we get some fantastic scenes and interactions between the two.
Thanks for drawing the fire, Lightyear. Oh, you won. Eat lasers, you
Thank you so much. I've always enjoyed playing the unwitting decoy. 1, 2, 3.
Yuck! Sucker!
Very funny, Lightyear.
It turns out the chips were placed inside Warp and Buzz for some kind of alien research. We also get some flashbacks into the past, which I won't spoil here. They then discuss and weigh the choices and decisions made by both over the years. And maybe in terms that are a little more simplistic than I would have preferred. Maybe they could have gone a little more in depth and drawn out a little more emotion.
Evil seems to be quite lucrative.
But such wealth has no lasting pleasure. It will rot his heart out and sour his...
Ha! I knew you'd see it my way. Evil is the greater power. We shall align with Emperor Zurg.
But the two eventually end up escaping, once again working together just like the old days. Maybe a little too much as Warp takes advantage and double crosses Buzz, ending the final test.
So long, Lightyear.
But you guessed it, he comes back to save Buzz. But maybe not for reasons as noble as they seem.
Stop looking at me like that.
Inside that evil husk of a body, there's a good guy just trying to get out.
There is not.
You came back. You said you couldn't leave without me.
That's right. I couldn't, because I can't drive a stick.
Oh.
But I don't know, kinda seems like a lame excuse, Warp. I think you're going soft. And before my final pick, I have some honorable mentions. Number 1, holiday time. Yes, it's a Christmas episode, you know, the ones with awesomely epic fight scenes. And that's sadly the only unique thing about it. It's Zurg using the power of Christmas to, well, destroy Christmas. And Zurg is funny, and I do enjoy the fighting scene. The rest of the episode is pretty standard Christmas barf. You've got the real Santa, no one believes it's him because adults, and there's nothing else really special about it. So I decided to skip this one. Number 2, Lost in Time. This is where Buzz gets sucked into a black hole and ends up in the future, with a twist, but I won't spoil it here.
Well, I guess we'll just have to see about that, won't we?
I guess we will.
We'll not.
Will do.
Okay then.
Fine.
I really like this episode, but honestly, I didn't really have much to say about it. It's funny, suspenseful, and it's got a pretty decent twist, but I don't know, I just didn't really feel it. Number 3, Nose 482. I really wanted to do this episode. I really did. And there really isn't any reason not to, except I already picked a Nose 482 episode, and I wanted a broad range of the show. But pretty much anything he's in is fantastic. This episode just so happens to be his first appearance, and I would highly recommend it. Okay, so no more delays. Let's get to my final pick. Episode 26, The Wirewolf. I always thought this was a pretty creative one. I also remember that this is a very popular and well-remembered episode of the series. One of Buzz's old friends, Ty Parsec, is having trouble keeping an energy-harvesting planet safe from the energy vampire Nose 482. But it turns out Ranger Parsec is resentful of his old friend Buzz and his success.
Oh, well, just as long as they didn't send...
Time, buddy!
him! Look, where's a wormhole when you need one?
To Ty's dismay, they call in Team Lightyear to help, and they spend just the right amount of time setting up Buzz and Ty's current relationship.
Ranger Buzz Lightyear, holder of the Galactic Starburst, the Order of 1,000 Suns, the Cosmic Pulsar of Glory.
All right, we're wasting valuable time here.
This way we can better understand where Ranger Parsek's anger and frustration is coming from. He doesn't want to say anything to hurt Buzz directly, but rather uses microaggressions to express his repressed anger and emotions. And they're definitely not hiding that.
And he's turning on you. I think you and Ty have some heavy issues.
When they decide to search the grounds, Ty tries to be the hero and ends up getting bit while being exposed to the moon's heavy radiation. Not long after, it's found to have monstrous effects. In a quite well done transformation scene. Even though science probably doesn't back it up, it's still pretty cool. After the wirewolf goes on a rampage, just make it blue and robot, and the sensors never seem to fault it. I'm not complaining at all, it's just funny due to the nature of the one episode that got banned from airing in the series. Later, while the team puts the pieces together, it's obvious this wasn't the work of the energy vampire. Ty, not yet realizing what has happened to him, or that he had something to do with this, suggests they set a trap. But of course, the curse takes effect, and the wolf is on the prowl.
Ty, do you hear that sound?
Of course they have fun with Ty changing from beast to spaceman, but Ty finally realizes everyone, especially Buzz, is in danger.
You're all in danger, especially you.
Why would I be in danger? I came here to help you, and if you ever needed my help, you need it now.
Stop saying that!
So how exactly do you cure a wirewolf? By blowing up the moon, of course! Or perhaps not.
Radioactive moon rock. Lovely. Wirewolf shall live again.
The Wirewolf saga continues in episode 43, Return of the Monsters. If you like this one, I highly recommend checking it out. So these were my top picks for Buzz Lightyear of Starcommand, the series. These aren't necessarily my 3 favorite episodes, but they're some of the best showcasing what the series has to offer. So, if you haven't yet, I definitely recommend giving this series a chance.
His laser ray is on his hand. He leads the way for the Star Command. And all this buzz is 'cause of a real space toy.
Is it evil yet?